Hi, everybody. My name is Phil, and welcome to Netflix and Phil. Today, I have a very special, honorable guest. His name is the one, the only, Eddie Deirmenjian. Welcome to Netflix and Phil. Hooray!
Hey, everybody. Phil, thank you so much for having me.
Eddie and I were just talking about how long we've known each other. We go way back.
Yeah.
And we can't quite recall the last time we saw each other, but we crossed paths in LA. So I want to talk about LA. But firstly, I want to talk about you because I know some of your history. Yeah, I know some of your history, but I want all the details. So I know I met you in Vegas, but what
Mm.
came before Vegas? Tell me.
Well, before I moved to Vegas in 1998 when I started high school,
Okay.
because we had some family friends that moved out to Vegas before us, like on a whim. They were out here on a business trip and were like, hey, let's go look at condos. And I was like, hey, I think we just bought a condo in Vegas.
Oh my gosh.
But they knew I was like so into film and everything, and they looked at like UNLV and they're like, this is like a really good film program. And at the time, there was this thing called the Millennium Scholarship,
Mm-hmm.
where if you graduated from a Nevada high school, um, you got 20 grand to go to a Nevada college. So it was kind of a no brainer.
Trainer. And coincidentally, that's when I moved. I moved from LA here in '98 myself. Of course, I grew up in Vegas, but I was no wait, I had it wrong. I moved to LA in '98.
Okay.
And I didn't come back till 2006. So we must have met a few years after that.
Because I started taking classes at Second City in 2007.
Okay, that makes sense. So I screwed it up. So I moved to LA in '98, and you came here in '98.
Yes.
Okay, and
Hot
now
on your tail, and you just kept moving
I
west.
know. I wonder if we would have connected sooner if it had been different. But yes, speaking of improv, I know that's how I think we ultimately crossed paths. You mentioned your filmmaking studies at UNLV. I'm just
Mhm.
curious, what experience do you or did you have or continue to have with improv? Tell me about that.
It was one of those things where I never felt like super comfortable around people when I was a kid. Like anytime I had to give a public speech, it was always this. I was going back, like rocking back and forth, and I always had teachers tell me, like, stop moving, plant your feet. So I knew, like, performing in public speaking, that sort of thing was always a hindrance to me. So, like, I never got involved with theater throughout high school and college. I found so much solace in filmmaking because you don't have a million eyes on you while you're performing. Pretty small set considering the kind of stuff we were doing at the time. And if you messed up, boom, you get another take.
Mhm.
But I knew if I wanted to pursue a career in comedy, improv was something that I just needed to learn the basics of, to feel more comfortable, and just to put myself out there more. When I found out Second City was in Vegas, I was working for an internet company at the time, and I was producing sketches for them. And I'm like, yo, I think maybe like I should sign up for these classes, and you guys will pay for it because it's technically job training, right? And they did.
Oh, that's wonderful. So I think it was on or about that time that I began to grow awareness of you. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I started hosting film festivals where Second City cast members were hosting shows,
Mhm.
independent of the ones they were doing at the Flamingo. And I think I came to know you through that film festival aspect or improv or both. Do you
It had to be when we would do set the improv show in
Yeah.
Vegas, and I had to have gone to it, and you must have made a pitch on stage, like, "We're doing a film festival, accepting movies," and I'm like, "I gotta meet Phil."
Yes, and I think I showcased some of your earlier work, and then you and I started collaborating on a bunch of stuff, and I think that's how it all kind of came together. So you have or continue to have your own production company. What was the genesis of that?
I always just, I mean, I had always wanted to be an actor,
Uh-huh.
and I knew, like, I'd ask my parents as a kid, like, "Hey, I want to get in acting," and they're like, "Sure," and nothing ever came of it. Which, in complete fairness, it is so hard being a parent to a child actor. Like, you need one parent who is working full time and one that's just able to like take you around all your classes and auditions. So I understand why it never happened.
Right.
But I, just sort of came to the conclusion, like, I'm just gonna have to do this all on my own if I want anything to happen. Even before moving to Vegas, I had always had friends that were just enthralled with, like, making stuff, and we had, like, giant VHS cameras that went on the shoulder.
Right.
But when I moved to Vegas, I was so lucky to meet so many friends in high school that had very similar interests. And we just got to make our own stuff. And even into college, like we were shooting most of the movies I shot in college were not for class or credit. It's just like, yeah, of course I'm going to spend my weekend making a movie.
Were you tasked with producing like a thesis film or anything like that?
I don't really think we had to do that when we graduated. It was more like for each class. Um, I mean, depending on the requirements of it, you'd wind up making movies, but, like, all my, like, crazier short films I made that I sent off to film festivals, just did those on my own.
And I think that's when I started to really took take notice of you because they really pushed the envelope. And I think on a few occasions I showcased some of your work before we started collaborating. There's one that immediately comes to mind that you can share and I can even link to. Is Direct to Your Door. Remember that one?
Yes!
Tell me about that
Yes!
one.
That one, I was living in Vegas at the time, and this was just like it seems like such a, like, story you tell on a talk show for how I came up with this movie, but was living in Vegas, and my girlfriend and I had gone back to New Jersey for a family member of hers wedding, and we were in the hotel room. I'm in a dirty Jersey hotel room watching this like crummy tube TV, and this commercial comes on with featuring Betty White,
Uh-huh.
and it was for a getting your medications for your pet delivered. I can't even remember the real name of the company because the fake one that I use in the movie stuck in my head.
Six, yeah.
And like as soon as the commercial end, I saw the entire movie play out in my mind, and I'm like cackling, rolling on the floor, laughing myself crazy. And my girlfriend's like so nervous that I'm going to meet her family for the first time, and she's like, "What are you laughing at? What's happening? What's so funny?" And I'm like trying to explain the movie to her like through gasping laughter, and she's just like, "You're an insane person. Come on, we gotta go."
And then I know you submitted it to one of the film festivals I had, and I remember we were, like, toying with the thought that maybe it was just too much, and I don't know, did we tweak it before we screened it, or did I ask you to? I for some reason, that comes to mind.
You wanted me to make some changes to it, and I'm like, I can't. I can't. This is the story I want to
Yeah,
tell. I want to
yeah,
go all out with it. If
yeah.
maybe if you don't want to put it in the festival because you think it's so extreme, I will completely understand that. No hard feelings. But you did showcase it in its entirety, and
That's
I'm
great.
very
So,
appreciative.
I'll link to it. I'm sure it's on YouTube, is that correct? Because 'Cause I'll put a link to it in the description. So, I always felt kinda weird, like, I, it was just me. I didn't really have, like, any, like, colleagues or whatever when I did that film festival, and I was just soliciting films from the improv community. But I guess at the same time, I was felt like, compelled to, encourage people to create something wonderful that was, like, film festival quality, so that you could not only submit it to what was called the Phil Film Festival, which is a play on my name, but
And of course, Netflix and Phil, it's like
Netflix and
you're
film.
killing it with the branding.
So yeah, I was staying on brand. But I remember kind of feeling like it could be an opportunity to like get people to a certain level because improvisers, I think, and you can tell me if you disagree, but I think improvisers as a rule are kind of, and myself included, are kind of like, I consider myself lazy. Like I haven't done any formal theater since I can't tell you, but that's where I caught the bug was in theater,
Mm.
and doing scripted plays. Now, if you were to ask me to do it, I'd be like, I'm sorry, I don't have the time or energy. So, but that said, I think the films that I showcased were good, and then it brought us together, I should say, and we worked on several projects.
Yeah.
A couple of them, one that comes to mind was I'm sure I pitched it to you. It was Scary Phone Call. What do you remember about that?
One of the things that I loved about all the stuff we shot together, and it was approaching filmmaking from an improvisational standpoint.
Mhm.
So, we didn't really know what we were going to do, but we just knew like this is the goal. We got to get there. It's kind of like being on stage during an improv show. It's like we found the game of the scene. We ran with it from there, but one of the things I wanted to do to challenge myself as a filmmaker was to not come in with a plan as a filmmaker also. Like I would normally like meticulously have my shot lists and sometimes I'd storyboard things, but this it's like let's just keep it loose, figure out interesting things on the fly, and also like improv helped me as a performer. Making movies like that absolutely helped me as a filmmaker.
I'll link to it too. And basically, since I'm a huge horror film fan, it was kind of an homage to all those Scream movies, etc. Molly Murphy was in it. I was in drag for a part of it. It was just kind of crazy, crazy situation. But I remember like your flexibility, and we worked with John Swaddlenik, and I just remember when I did short films with you that it was just so easy, and it didn't feel difficult, and I thought we worked very well together.
I
And
felt the same thing. That's why I absolutely, whenever you had an idea for something, it's like, let's go. It was that, the Nathan Grant movies, Gayer
yes.
Gardens.
Ooh. Oh shoot, I forgot about Gare Garden. So yes, you did help me do a riff on the documentary Grey Gardens, and I thought he's not going to go for this, and I think I forced you to watch Grey Gardens. And I think prior to that, I should mention her, Molly Murphy, who uniquely, I don't know if you know this, she's like the president or creative head of Universal like parks and attractions right now.
No way.
Yeah, if you should like friend her on LinkedIn. But
That's
she
crazy.
she and I did a riff on that doc called Gay Gardens, and she kind of shot and produced it, and that was in a really early film festival. And then you and I did,
I forgot. Ours
yeah,
was
ours
that.
was the sequel, Gayer Gardens, and it was pretty gay. And I was the little Edie character, and my mom played Big Edie, and I
I
just
just,
remember it was fun.
your mom singing Tea for Two.
You mentioned Nathan Grant, and again, speaking of horror, I was not only a fan of horror movies, but also ghost hunting shows, which were having a renaissance at the time. And you and I would partner for these shorts where I was like the lead ghost hunter, and you were my psychic
Mhm.
counterpart. Tell me about your character.
I mean, I too like horror. That is my genre jam,
Yes.
genre jam. And there were so many ghost hunting shows on at the time, and right now I can't remember the name of the one, but there was a character, and his name was Chip,
Yes.
and he was like a Southern gentleman, and he had no nonsense for those ghosts. He would tell them to get out of this house. I loved
Absolutely.
him so much.
and you played him so well, and he's still around. He appears on I don't know if you watch it, Kindred Spirits, because he was born of the like I don't know, he was on television a lot, but they usually bring him into episodes on Kindred Spirits. It's an offshoot of Ghost Hunters with a couple of the former Ghost Hunters have their own show and they invite Chip in all the time. Well,
And I was
we
Chap. I was Chap.
you were Chap, that's right. So we did a couple episodes. One where we were tending to a possessed girl, which I remember, and
Mhm.
another one where for some reason it was just so serendipitous. We actually got a location that had a basement. What do you remember of Nathan Grant? I think it was episode 7.
We were in the library.
Mhm.
That is so wild that the library let us shoot, and we were just locked in the library overnight, and, we upped the special effects with that one. We had Lee playing the ghost
Mhm.
miner,
Yep.
and we did all these effects on him, and, ah!
And I remember it turned out really beautiful. It was just so much fun to do, and at the time, the head librarian, she was a thespian herself. So when we approached her, and I had a friend that was working at the Boulder City Library, I should say,
Yes, Boulder City
sh-
Library!
and she was like a former actress or had done community theater, and she was like, "Yes, yes, yes, come shoot your little short at my library." And then I remember I wrote in a basement in this episode, and I'm like, "How are we gonna do this?" And lo and behold, she had like this full unfinished room at that library that was just dirt and concrete
Yeah,
walls.
dirt, concrete, I put piles of bricks because it's like, "Yeah, we're gonna do it eventually, but not today."
Yeah, because I think we thought we were gonna do separate locations, and no, it was all there at the Boulder City Library.
Who would have thought you could find a basement in Nevada?
It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So I so after that, and help me with the timeline. You continue to do many shorts with the group collectively, your company, your creative team. So tell me about some of those projects and ultimately what happened after you moved to LA. You left me, Eddie, and not that I'm mad.
I feel shame for that,
Ah!
and I hope there's maybe someday, some way you can find it within your iced over heart to forgive me.
I did hate it when you left because I don't think I've done anything akin to filmmaking since you left, honestly. But
It
anyway,
I mean, the
but
group collectively, that was our, company all throughout college, and after we graduated, like, people moved to different states, but then we would meet new people and they would come in, and that's why I thought when we came up with that name, it was perfect because it's a group and we're always changing, always evolving, and still, like, my friend Kevin, he's still making his own feature films in Colorado right now. We're kind of like spread out around the country and everyone's still making stuff. Wait, after college, that was when I started working at the internet company.
uh-huh,
So that kind of consumed all my time shooting sketches there. And when I left there, that was when I made Direct to Your Door.
uh-huh,
And then we got to know each other much better throughout the film festival.
right.
And we were collaborating. And the next major project I worked on after that was called The Unemployed,
Mhm,
web series about some unemployed individuals and
mhm.
the madcap hijinks they got into, and that was so much fun. Uh,
Absolutely, because you worked with Mark and Justy on that project, and I think it kinda came about during, like, the economic crisis of the
yeah,
time or something because there were a lot of unemployed people.
I myself.
You included, I take it. Uh
So work with what you know.
we had the unemployed. what I guess my question is, was there any sort of impetus to go to LA, or was it just like often happens, hey, let's go and try it out and see what happens?
It's funny you should ask, because I really didn't have any plan to go. While I was working on The Unemployed, I wound up getting a job shooting weddings at like for this company that handled like all the casinos on the strip. It was fine. It's wedding videos.
Yeah.
But I'd always like wear my like suit and tie. I dress up because it's like, you're going to a chapel, you're representing the company. This is people's big day. It's an important event for them. So, look the part, be respectful. And I remember there was one guy who had like red leather dress shoes and he wore, and it's like, they look like professional shoes. They worked with his outfit. He wore them to a wedding, and the chapel lost their minds. They like reamed him and the guy who ran the company, and we got this email blast sent out to everybody. And I will never forget, there was a very specific phrase in it. Our boss said there needs to be a quote, uptick in professionalism. And that pissed me off so much.
Yes.
It's like, you're going to send this out to the entire company? I'm already presenting my best self. And I got so pissed off. I was with Justy when I got the email. I said, I am done with this. I am putting my 2 weeks notice in and I am moving to LA in a month.
Nice.
And I did.
And where you continue to live and pursue your craft, which I think is amazing because I myself gave LA a chance, but haven't gotten back, of course. But that maybe is your next web series, Uptick in Professionalism.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, as long as
That's
I can make
pretty
a
good.
cameo.
Absolutely.
So not only are you pursuing acting, etc., but you were involved with the long running show on the Hallmark Channel. Tell
Yeah.
us tell us about that.
So the show was called Home and Family on Hallmark. It was a daily 2 hour live to tape talk show. So, I mean, it wasn't live, but we treated it like it was. So we would tape from 1 to 3 p.m. every day. And if you mess up, too bad, that goes to air.
Wow.
So, like, we did segments where like the hosts weren't there when it started, and you would just have the guests standing there like, "Hi, today I'm going to show you how to make DIY reclaimed wood," and then the hosts would run in and be like, "Oh, great, what are you using?" So, like, but I mean, in order to make that kind of show, like, you really don't have the luxury to shoot all day. You're doing 2 hours every single day, and I had started as a PA. I was also being an assistant for the hosts, and also they were training me to be a producer's assistant. So it's like, oh, Eddie, stop working on this thing for the show. Now you have to go take one of the hosts' car to get washed. I'm like, but this thing has to be done at 4 p.m. And they're like, figure it out. And I survived. I made it. When the second season of the show started, they put me in charge of writing the cue cards.
Well, and I was kind of sniffing around and I noticed, tell me, you have a directing credit on that show. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, we would do, I mean, I produced a couple segments,
Uh-huh.
but I had an opportunity. We were doing an integration with, integration is pretty much like we've got an ad sales thing and we're doing a segment.
Sure.
So we had like a bunch of stars from different Hallmark movies, and it was an integration, I think, with like Jeep
Okay.
and I want to say maybe Wounded Warrior
Okay.
Foundation.
Sure.
So I pitched it to the producer like, I'll help you write this thing. I want to direct this segment.
Nice.
Like, go for it. So I mean that I think was such a great thing about that show. Like a lot of people that worked on it were it was their first jobs. So there was first jobs in entertainment rather, but it was, and you were given an opportunity. So if you took it, you could grow a career from there. Like so many people started as PAs, and when the show was over, they were producers, and now they produce television in LA.
Yeah, I followed your time with them, and you encountered, I'm sure, a lot of guest celebrities, etc. Uh, any good, or for that matter, bad memories
Oh,
that you're willing to share?
oh boy.
Because you were with them a long time.
Yeah, I was 9 seasons,
Wow.
almost, almost a decade. I was there.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the thing is, I don't want to speak out of school,
Yeah.
but
And you don't have to.
there are so many like major A-list celebrities that are like the chillest people in the world.
Mhm.
Like I remember we had Gina Davis on the show, and she had like her trailer and everything and all this, and she's like, no, it's fine. And she was just sort of hanging out, and like when everyone's eating lunch, she's just like chilling in the lunch area and just so down to earth. But then you'll have like people that are low level celebrities,
Mhm.
and they believe they have to act a certain way, like, "Oh, I'm a star, I gotta be difficult."
Yeah.
They do that thing where they say, "Hey, can I get you something to drink?" And it's like, "Yeah, I want a Diet Shasta manufactured in 1979." It's like, you gotta do that stuff so people remember you. It's like, yeah, they remember they're gonna hate you forever.
That's terrible. I wouldn't even know how to react. I believe the Gina Davis thing because she was one of the I encountered several celebrities when I lived in LA, and I was at a restaurant once where she was like just a few booths away, and you can just tell people seem like accessible and friendly. Not that I
Mhm.
chatted with her or anything, but I did get that vibe. Well, that said, I'm just very curious, what's next on your agenda? What does the future hold for Eddie Dermenjian? Projects you have done you want to pitch or anything that's coming out that you'd like to share?
That's a tough one for me right now.
Okay.
It's been dead out here. I mean, with COVID and then the strikes last year, it's just been difficult, and I really spent most of COVID working on a feature,
Mhm.
just writing it, and it's one of those things where it's like you work on it, you kinda lose where you're going, put it away, and then wham, inspiration hits, and you've got a whole new direction for it. So I'm working on that in the background, and I'm like one sequence away from finishing it, and it is the
Nice.
most difficult thing in the world. So that's kind of like driving me nuts. But just the other day, I started putting together an idea for a new like project to work on. It's so raw. I don't even have like a pitch deck for it. Like I'm in the like I need to research how to do this thing phase right now. Yeah, I
Well,
mean, aside from that, auditioning for things when they're out. I've done a bunch of like short films, student films. Um, yeah, and then just my freelance work. I do teleprompter freelance now,
oh,
so that's
nice.
been keeping me busy.
Well, I that's what you have to do in order to get seen.
Yeah.
Student projects and short films, etc. And I'm glad that you continue to do those, and I hope you continue to have success there. I think we were chatting or texting recently, and it's been teased forever, but they always say we're getting a motion picture studio here, and I've been reading how devoid of any projects LA is right now. And it seems like everything is happening throughout the US and not there. And would you come back here if it ever came to fruition that we did have some sort of studio here in Vegas?
I can local hire, but I'd prefer if they paid for my hotel.
Yeah, yeah, that would be great. That would
Yeah,
be
I mean,
great.
wherever the work is, I'm willing. Like, I know actors who travel all around the country to do TV shows and movies. It's like, go where it is. It's not going to come to you, or
Yeah,
it might actually. It might come to you. It might be in Vegas.
it might be in Vegas someday. Well, I know I saw Netflix does a lot of production out of their studio in Is it New Mexico? Am I saying that right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so it just seems like everything's not in LA, and it's just so unusual to me because like you said, the writer strikes put a crimp in everything, and the pandemic, so it's just a very interesting time.
It is also rough everywhere. I hear from people who are in like Georgia where there's a huge hub. I hear it's difficult out there. I think the biggest problem is now that the streaming bubble has burst, we're not going to see productions like we used to. I mean, 2020 through 2022 is like insane output of
Yeah,
shows and movies being made, but
right.
it wasn't sustainable. There
Yeah.
was no audience. It wasn't making money. And all the studios were fine with that because they were just trying to bankrupt the competition. And now that that's happened, they're like, great, we don't need to make 500 shows a year. We can just make three.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, because I was working for a group during that boom, so it seemed like we were doing everything and anything, but I'm sure, yeah, they were testing the waters and now it just isn't viable anymore. So, where can my viewers, all two of them, find you on social media? Let us know. Where can they follow you, Eddie?
Well, they can follow me where all two of my followers follow me. I'm on Instagram and YouTube at Eddie Makes Movies. I have a TikTok, but I like don't use it. It's the same, Eddie Makes Movies. I feel like I need to learn that.
Well, and I'll just state if anything with your upcoming projects needs someone like me in it, let me know.
Honestly though, like there's a couple short films when I was writing the feature, I'm like, you know what, maybe I should pivot to like these short film ideas that I have kind of fleshed out. And I was like, I would totally love to go shoot these back in Vegas with like you, Max, just get the gang back together and make a short again.
I'd love to do that too. I see like Max and Mark occasionally. Mark is still improvising. I think Max is still doing more scripted stuff, but Mark has jumped back into improv. Is John still with you in LA?
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Do you guys still work on stuff together or no?
Personal projects, unfortunately, not right now. I mean, we're both just so slammed with work. I mean, he's editing for Penske Media, so like Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Billboard, it's
Oh my gosh.
all under that brand. So
Oh
yeah.
my gosh, then he must be really busy. Well, thank you for your time. And again, I hope we can reconnect professionally or personally
Me too.
at some point.
It's been so tough making trips back to Vegas. It's like, because both Justy and I mean,
Uh-huh.
I've gotten calls at like 7 in the morning, like, can you be on set now? What? It's so last minute with the freelance stuff. And Justy will get rush calls like the other night she got at 2:45 in the morning a rush call to be on set the next day.
That's insane. Well, and speaking of Justy, tell her I said hello and I follow her and her uh roles in the background there on several big shows. So I'm glad that's working out for her and she's finding time to do all that. So
Yeah,
that's
she's
awesome.
on set today.
I
Otherwise,
can
would have had her
imagine.
pop in and come say hi.
Uh, we'll tell her I said hello. Well, thank you so much, Eddie. I'll go ahead and stop recording. And it was a pleasure to have you on Netflix and Phil.
Feel, Phil.
Phil. Yes.